Mother-in-law decides to test her 3 son-in-laws for their good nature. For this, she goes for a walk by a river with the first one and jumps in. He saves her. The next morning, he finds a Toyota Corolla parked outside his house with a note. From your mother-in-law. The next day, she goes for a walk by the river with the second one and jumps in. He, too, saves her. The next morning, he also finds a Toyota Corolla parked outside his house with a note. From your mother-in-law. The next day, she goes for a walk by the river with the third one and jumps in. He just laughs and walks away. The next morning, he finds a BMW M5 parked outside his house with a note. From your father-in-law. A man is in bed with his wife when there is a knock at the door. He rolls over and looks at his clock, and it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm not getting out of bed at this time, he thinks, and rolls over. Then a louder knock follows. Aren't you going to answer that? Says his wife. So he drags himself out of bed and goes downstairs. He opens the door and there is a man standing on the porch. It didn't take the homeowner long to realize the man was drunk. Hi there, slurs the stranger. Can you give me a push? No, get lost. It's 3:30. I was in bed, says the man, and he slams the door. He goes back up to bed and tells his wife what happened, and she says, That wasn't very nice of you. Remember that night we broke down in the pouring rain on the way to pick the kids up from the babysitter, and you had to knock on that man's house to get us started again? What would have happened if he'd told us to get lost? But the guy was drunk, says the husband. It doesn't matter, says the wife. He needs our help, and it would be the Christian thing to help him. So the husband gets out of bed again, gets dressed, and goes downstairs. He opens the front door, and not being able to see the stranger anywhere, he shouts, Hey, do you still want a push? And he hears a voice cry out, Yeah, please. So still being unable to see the stranger, he shouts, Where are you? And the drunk replies, Over here on the swing. A man goes into a doctor's and says, Doctor, you've got to help me. I just can't stop having lovemaking. Well, how often do you have it? The doctor asks. Well, twice a day I have make love with my wife. Twice a day, he answers back. That's not so much, says doctor. Yes, but that's not all. Twice a day I have lovemaking with my secretary. Twice a day, replies the man. Well, that is probably a bit excessive, says the doctor. Yes, but that's not all. Twice a day I have lovemaking with my neighbor lady. Twice a day, says the man. Well, that's definitely too much, says the doctor. You've got to learn to take yourself in hand. I do, says the man. Twice a day. In a crowded city at a crowded bus stop, a beautiful young woman was waiting for the bus. She was decked out in a tight leather miniskirt with matching tight leather boots and jacket. As the bus rolled up and it became her turn to get on, she became aware that her skirt was too tight to allow her leg to come up to the height of the first step on the bus. Slightly embarrassed and with a quick smile to the bus driver, she reached behind her and unzipped her skirt a little, thinking that this would give her enough slack to raise her leg. Again, she tried to make the step onto the bus, only to discover she still couldn't. So, a little more embarrassed, she once again reached behind her and unzipped her skirt a little more, and for a second time attempted the step. And once again, much to her chagrin, she could not raise her leg because of the tight skirt. So, with a coy little smile to the driver, she again unzipped the offending skirt to give little more slack, and again was unable to make the step. About this time, the big Texan that was behind her in the line picked her up easily from the waist and placed her lightly on the step of the bus. Well, she went ballistic and turned on the would-be hero, screeching at him. "How dare you touch my body? I don't even know who you are." At this, the Texan drawled, "Well, ma'am, normally I would agree with you, but after you unzipped my fly 3 times, I kind figured that we was friends." The teacher asked the class to use the word fascinate in a sentence. Molly put up her hand and said, "My family went to my granddad's farm and we all saw his pet sheep. It was fascinating." The teacher said, "That was good, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate, not fascinating." Sally raised her hand. She said, "My family went to see Rock City and I was fascinated." The teacher said, "Well, that was good, Sally, but I wanted you to use the word fascinate." Little Johnny raised his hand, but the teacher hesitated because she had been burned by Little Johnny before. She finally decided there was no way he could damage the word fascinate, so she called on him. Johnny said, "My Aunt Carolyn has a sweater with 10 buttons, but her tits are so big she can only fasten 8. Husband asks wife, "Honey, if I died, would you get remarried?" Wife answers, "Well, I suppose so." Husband asks, "Would you and he sleep in the same bed?" Wife answers, "I guess we would." Husband asks, "Would you make love to him?" Wife answers, "He would be my husband then, dear." Husband asks, "Would you give him my golf clubs?" Wife answers, "No, he's left-handed." A group of drunk, rich, blonde sorority girls decide to play Russian roulette. They each put in $50,000 on the condition that anyone who chickens out loses their bet, and the last one still playing keeps the entire pot. Kirsten goes first, puts the gun to her head, and pulls the trigger. Blam! She drops dead. Maddie goes next, saying, "Well, I hope I have better luck than Kirsten," and blam! She drops dead. Vicky takes her turn, saying, "Third time's a charm, right?" And blam! She drops dead. Danielle picks up the gun and looks at it. "Hey," she asks Brooke, "isn't this game played with a revolver?" An airplane pilot was welcoming the passengers on the plane shortly after takeoff. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome to flight number 321, non-stop from New York to Los Angeles. The weather ahead is good, and therefore we should have a smooth and uneventful flight. Now sit back and..." When suddenly he starts screaming while he is still on the loudspeakers, "Oh my God! Oh my God! This is going to hurt. Oh my God!" Silence reigned. You can hear a pin drop. He gets back on the microphone, talking to the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am so sorry if I scared you earlier, but while I was talking, the flight attendant brought me a cup of coffee and spilled the hot coffee in my lap. You should see the front of my pants." A passenger hollered, "Why don't you come back here and see our pants from behind?" My friends, it takes a lot of time to create videos, and 99% of viewers watch videos without subscribing. Subscribe to the channel. This will help me continue to work.